The metallic skyline of Nebulan shimmered under a twin sun, its brilliant hues painting the horizon in gold and lavender. Jason Carter adjusted his dress uniform, the ceremonial attire feeling strangely heavy in this alien gravity. As an honored delegate of Earth, he had prepared himself for the grandeur of the Nebulonian court, but nothing could have readied him for the extravagance surrounding him. The Grand Hall of King Zorax was a marvel of biomechanical engineering, its walls pulsating with a faint luminescence, alive with intricate carvings that seemed to shift and dance with the rhythm of the Nebulonian symphony. Diplomats from across the galaxy, their forms as diverse as the stars, mingled in the vast hall. At the center, King Zorax himself sat atop a floating throne, his imposing frame radiating authority. As the ceremony reached its climax, King Zorax rose. His voice, deep and resonant, echoed across the chamber. Today, we honor our alliance with the people of Earth. A union of strength and trust must be sealed with a gesture of goodwill. Jason, standing among Earth's delegates, tensed slightly. Gestures of goodwill in diplomatic settings were often symbolic, a gift of art, technology, or resources. He didn't expect what came next. With a wave of the king's six-fingered hand, a pair of figures emerged from behind the throne. The first was a tall Nebulonian woman with emerald skin and piercing violet eyes. Her grace was undeniable, her movements deliberate and confident. Beside her stood a boy, no more than 7 by Earth standards, his curious gaze darting around the room. This is Elira of the House Lyran, and her child, Miko. Widowed in the war against the Kethrak Raiders, they are brave and honorable. As a symbol of our bond, I offer them to Major Jason Carter, a warrior of Earth. Jason's heart skipped a beat. The room fell silent, all eyes on him. He hesitated, unsure how to respond. Offering living beings as gifts wasn't just foreign, it was profoundly unsettling to his human values. Yet, Nebulonian customs held no malice. This was a gesture of the highest respect. Your Majesty, Jason began, carefully choosing his words, this is an extraordinary honor. I must confess, such a gesture is unfamiliar to me, and I hope to understand its meaning better. King Zorax's expression softened, a rare smile gracing his stern features. They are not slaves, nor servants, Major Carter. Elira and Miko have volunteered to walk alongside you as companions, to bridge the gap between our peoples. Through them, you will come to know Nebulan, as they will come to know Earth. Elira stepped forward, her voice melodic yet firm. I come willingly, Major Carter. My son and I are not pawns, but emissaries. We seek to build a future where our children can live without the shadow of war. Her words struck a chord in Jason. He could see the weight of her history in her eyes, loss, resilience, and hope. Miko, holding his mother's hand, looked up at Jason with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation. Jason nodded, offering a reassuring smile. If this is your wish, then I will honor it. Together, we will find a path forward. The hall erupted in applause, the alien symphony swelling once more. Yet, as Jason looked at Elira and Miko, he felt a quiet resolve growing within him. This was no ordinary assignment, no simple act of diplomacy. It was the beginning of something far more profound. That night, aboard the Earth ship Starbound, Jason stood on the observation deck, staring at Nebulan's glowing moons. Behind him, Elira and Miko settled into their new quarters, their presence already transforming the sterile military vessel into something more alive. Jason knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. 2 worlds, 2 cultures, 2 lives now intertwined. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, he couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected gift was a chance not just for peace between Earth and Nebulan, but for him to find a new sense of PU. The Starbound hummed softly as it drifted through the inky expanse of space. Its once sterile corridors had begun to take on a new life. Nebulonian silk drapes adorned the common areas, and the faint scent of Elira's native herbs mingled with the recycled air. To Jason Carter, it was both alien and strangely comforting. Jason found Elira in the galley one morning, meticulously preparing a Nebulonian dish. The glowing tendrils of a plant she called Tratheovine curled in a bowl of steaming liquid. She explained its significance as a symbol of unity in Nebulonian culture. Jason watched her work with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. "You're making this ship feel less like a tin can," he remarked with a smile. Elira glanced at him, her violet eyes sparkling. "The tin can save our lives. It deserves some care, don't you think?" Miko burst into the room, his small frame brimming with energy. He clutched the holographic learning pad Jason had given him, its screen displaying a diagram of Earth's solar system. "Jason, did you really live on a planet with just one sun? That's so boring." Jason chuckled, ruffling the boy's silver hair. "It's not boring when you're there, trust me. There's plenty of excitement: volcanoes, storms, earthquakes." Miko's eyes widened. "Really? Does your planet ever stop moving?" "Not really," Jason replied, laughing. These moments became frequent. Elira, though reserved at first, began sharing stories of her life before the war. She spoke of Nebulonian cities that floated above the clouds, of vast libraries that stored memories instead of books, and of her late husband, Varric, a scientist who had perished defending their home. Jason listened, absorbing not only her words, but the weight of her experiences. In turn, Jason opened up about his own life. He told them about his family back on Earth, his father's military legacy, and his decision to join the interstellar forces. He even confessed to his doubts about diplomacy, a field he had never seen himself excelling in. "You're doing better than most," Elira said one evening as they stood on the observation deck. The nebulae outside painted the room in soft hues of blue and green. "You're listening, learning. That's what matters." Miko, meanwhile, became the heart of the ship. His boundless curiosity endeared him to the crew, and his questions about Earth's culture often left Jason scrambling for explanations. One day, Miko wandered into the engineering bay and found Lieutenant Harris repairing a faulty relay. The young Nebulonian was fascinated by the machinery, peppering Harris with questions until the gruff engineer finally gave in and let him help. "He's got a knack for this stuff," Harris told Jason later. "Smart kid. Could use him down here." Jason smiled at the thought. Miko, the alien boy who once looked so out of place on the Starbound, was quickly finding his own. As the days turned to weeks, Jason, Elira, and Miko began to function like a family. Meals became a shared ritual, with Elira introducing Nebulonian dishes while Jason taught them Earth recipes. Miko's laughter filled the ship, his antics bringing a lightness Jason hadn't felt in years. Still, Jason knew their bond was fragile. The cultures they came from were vastly different, and misunderstandings were inevitable. One evening, after a particularly heated debate about discipline, Jason had scolded Miko for reprogramming the ship's AI to speak in Nebulonian. Elira pulled him aside. "You need to remember, Jason, Miko isn't like your human children," she said softly. "He's adjusting to a world that's completely new to him. Be patient." Jason nodded, realizing she was right. "I'll try," he said. "But I'm new to this too. Being, whatever it is I am to him." "You're a guide," Elira said. "A protector. Just like you've been for me." The moment hung in the air, unspoken emotions weaving between them. Jason saw the depth of Elira's strength, her resilience, and the quiet hope she held for a better future for herself, her son, and perhaps even for him. The Starbound continued its journey, its crew unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. For now, though, Jason allowed himself to believe that their strange, patchwork family could withstand anything the galaxy threw at them. But in the vastness of space, peace was always fleeting. The Starbound approached Earth's orbital docking station, a sprawling construct of steel and light circling the blue planet below. It was meant to be a routine visit-a diplomatic stopover where Elira would meet Earth officials and Miko would experience his first taste of life on a human world. Jason was cautiously optimistic. The bond they had formed aboard the ship seemed strong enough to weather whatever challenges lay ahead. But something about this visit felt off. Jason noticed subtle changes in the station's staff. Conversation stopped abruptly when he entered a room, and security seemed tighter than usual, with unfamiliar faces among the personnel. He mentioned it to Elira during breakfast in the Starbound's galley. "It's probably just heightened security for the diplomatic talks," she said, though her expression betrayed her own unease. Miko, oblivious to the tension, was bouncing with excitement. "Will I get to see real trees? And animals? Do they have those, Jason?" Jason smiled, ruffling the boy's hair. "Plenty of both. You'll love it." That afternoon, as Elira and Miko prepared for a tour of the station, Jason received a cryptic message on his comms. It was from an old friend in Earth's intelligence branch, Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez. "Jason, I've been monitoring the station's activity logs. There's something you need to see. Meet me in Subdeck 12. Alone." Jason hesitated. He trusted Elena, but her tone was urgent, almost desperate. He glanced at Elira, who was adjusting Miko's tunic. "Stay on the ship until I get back," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I just need to check something out." Elira gave him a questioning look but nodded. "Be careful." In the dimly lit confines of Subdeck 12, Jason found Elena waiting. She handed him a datapad, her expression grim. "There's a faction within the station that's not happy about the Nebulonian alliance," she said. "They think it's weakening Earth's sovereignty. Worse, they've targeted Elira and Miko as symbols of that alliance." Jason's stomach tightened. "What are they planning?" "They've infiltrated the station's security teams. The plan is to kidnap Miko during tomorrow's diplomatic reception and use him as leverage to force Elira into denouncing King Orcs. They think it'll undermine the peace treaty." Jason's mind raced. He had suspected some resistance to the alliance, but this was far beyond mere dissent. He clenched his fists. "Do we know where they're based?" Elena nodded. "The lower levels. They've converted an old storage bay into their operations hub. I can get you in, but we'll need to move fast." Jason's voice was steel. "We stopped them tonight." Jason returned to the Starbound to find Elira pacing the galley. The moment she saw his face, she knew something was wrong. "They're coming for Miko," he said, his voice low but firm. "We need to act before they make their move." Elira's eyes widened, her hand instinctively going to Miko, who sat nearby with his holopad. "What do we do?" Jason outlined the plan. Elira listened intently, her resolve hardening with each word. Despite her grief and loss, she had the heart of a warrior, and she wasn't about to let these conspirators take her son. That night, Jason and Elena led a small team of trusted operatives to the storage bay. The corridors were dark and eerily quiet, the hum of the station's machinery their only companion. When they reached the bay, they found it guarded by heavily armed men. It was clear these weren't amateurs. Jason took point, his military training kicking in. Using stealth and precision, they neutralized the guards and breached the facility. Inside, they found evidence of the conspiracy dossiers on Elira, plans for the kidnapping, and encrypted communications linking the group to anti-alliance factions on Earth. But there was no time to celebrate. As they prepared to leave, an alarm blared. The conspirators had been alerted. A firefight erupted in the narrow corridors. Jason covered Elena as she secured the data, while Elira, armed with a Nebulonian energy blade, fought with a ferocity that stunned even Jason. Her movements were fluid and deadly, a reminder of her noble warrior lineage. Amid the chaos, Jason spotted a figure trying to escape, a man carrying a stasis pod just large enough to hold a child. His blood ran cold. Miko, he shouted, charging after the man. The pursuit led Jason to an airlock. The kidnapper, cornered, turned to face him, a blaster aimed at the stasis pod. "Stay back, or the kid gets hurt." Jason froze, his weapon trained on the man. "You don't want to do this. Let him go, and you might walk out of here alive." Before the man could respond, a blur of green shot past Jason. Elira, her blade glowing, disarmed the kidnapper with a single, precise strike. Jason rushed forward, securing the stasis pod and releasing Miko, who clung to him tightly. "It's okay, buddy. I've got you," Jason whispered, his voice trembling with relief. Back on the Starbound, the trio sat together in the common area, exhausted but safe. Elena had returned to her duties, promising to root out the remaining conspirators. Elira held Miko close, her eyes filled with gratitude and determination. "You risked everything for him," she said to Jason. "For us." Jason met her gaze. "You're my family now. I'll always protect you." The words hung in the air, solidifying a bond that had been forged in the crucible of danger. Jason knew the fight for peace wasn't over, but for the first time, he felt certain they could face whatever came next together. The Starbound floated in high orbit above Earth, its sleek frame illuminated by the planet's glow. Inside, Jason, Elira, and Miko were preparing for a moment that would define their intertwined futures. The successful thwarting of the conspiracy had not only saved Miko but had also revealed the fractures threatening both Nebulonian and human societies. Now, it was time to confront them head-on. Jason stood in his quarters, adjusting his uniform. The last few days had been a whirlwind of debriefings, strategy meetings, and emotional moments with Elira and Miko. Tonight, they would address a joint assembly of Earth and Nebulonian leaders, a meeting arranged to discuss the conspiracy and reaffirm the alliance. Elira entered, her presence commanding yet serene. She wore a traditional Nebulonian gown, its flowing fabric shimmering like liquid starlight. Miko trailed behind, dressed in a hybrid of Earth and Nebulonian attire, a symbol of their shared cultures. "Ready?" Elira asked, her voice steady but laced with tension. Jason nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." The Grand Assembly Hall on Earth's orbital station was a spectacle of unity. Delegates from across the galaxy filled the tiers of the circular chamber. Nebulonian symbology blended with Earth's banners, creating a visual representation of the fragile alliance. King Zorax presided over the Nebulonian delegation, his imposing figure exuding authority. Opposite him sat President Eleanor Graves of Earth, her sharp intellect and commanding presence balancing the room. Between them stood Jason, Elira, and Miko, the living embodiments of the partnership they sought to solidify. Jason stepped forward, his voice echoing through the chamber. "A few days ago, a group sought to disrupt the peace we've worked so hard to build. Their actions were not just an attack on Elira and Miko, they were an attack on the very idea that our peoples can coexist." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "But we proved them wrong. Together, we stopped them. Not because we're the same, but because we recognize that our differences make us stronger." The room was silent, all eyes on him. Elira took the floor next. Her voice carried the melodic cadence of Nebulonian speech, but her words resonated universally. "When my son and I were given to Major Carter, it was meant to symbolize trust. What we've found is something deeper, a bond that goes beyond politics. It's a bond of family, of shared struggles and triumphs." She looked at Miko, who stepped forward with surprising confidence. "I'm just a kid," he said, his voice small but clear. "But I've seen how humans and Nebulonians can work together. My mom and Jason showed me that. So, maybe you guys can too?" A ripple of murmurs spread through the hall, followed by smiles and nods. The child's honesty had pierced the formalities, reminding everyone of what was truly at stake. As the assembly deliberated, Jason, Elira, and Miko waited in an antechamber. The tension was palpable, but Jason could see the spark of hope in Elira's eyes. Miko was curled up beside her, dozing after the excitement of the speech. "You were incredible out there," Jason said, his voice soft. "So were you," Elira replied, a faint smile on her lips. "I've fought wars, Jason, but this feels like the hardest battle of all." Jason nodded. "Because it's worth it." Before Elira could respond, a chime signaled their recall to the assembly floor. The trio entered to find the chamber buzzing with activity. King Zorax and President Graves stood side by side, their expressions grave but hopeful. President Graves addressed the room. "Today, we take the first step toward a shared future. The alliance between Earth and Nebulon will not just be a treaty, it will be a partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and a commitment to understanding." King Zorax raised his staff, the intricate carvings glowing faintly. "We honor the bravery of these three individuals who showed us the way. Let their actions remind us that unity is not given, it is forged." The chamber erupted in applause, a sound that reverberated across the galaxy through live transmissions. Jason felt Elira's hand brush his, a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory. In the days that followed, the alliance began to take shape. Joint research initiatives were launched, combining Nebulonian bioengineering with Earth's technological ingenuity. Cultural exchange programs allowed humans and Nebulonians to experience each other's worlds. And on the Starbound, Jason, Elira, and Miko prepared for their next mission, a goodwill tour across the galaxy. One evening, as they stood on the observation deck, Jason turned to Elira. "Do you think we've done enough?" Elira gazed out at the stars, her expression thoughtful. "Enough to start. But the work will never really be done. That's what makes it meaningful." Miko, perched on a nearby console, grinned. "Can I help next time?" Jason ruffled the boy's hair. "You already are." The stars outside seemed closer, brighter, as the Starbound set its course. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, Jason felt certain that they were heading in the right direction. Together, they were not just bridging worlds, they were building a future.